I knew of him before he was growing inside me. He was 2 days old. I spoke a mother's blessing. I bless you to remember you are loved, beloved child. Then at 17, he was afraid. He was talking to me, and I could feel the fear in his voice. And I was afraid. What could be this terrible that he could barely speak? For just a moment, I sensed that my dad was next to me. I could hear his voice, which I missed so much, say calmly, "He is telling you he is gay. It will be all right." Then I felt a second of calm before he told me. I hardly remember all I said. I know I told him I loved him no matter what. I cried. I said some stupid things, asked some ridiculous questions. Are you sure? How do you know? Questions that said more about me and my unwillingness to believe that I would not know this about my own son. How could I not know? Why did it still seem so unreal to me? I had been so proud of my openness, my awareness, my enlightenment. How could I miss this? And if I had known, what? Could I have protected him? Would I have stepped in to interfere with anyone who could have suggested he was somehow wrong, somehow not worthy of God's love? I did things that I thought would make him feel better, but I didn't do what he needed. I didn't just listen, just love, just be there. I was afraid of being so wrong. I could not even find out what I could do. He had me promise not to tell anyone. So I was trying to protect him without telling anyone. I told God I was pleading on my knees for help, for answers. Please, please make him know he is loved. Please make people not say hurtful things around him. Please make him not want to be with people who are dangerous. Please make him trust that I love him. Please make him remember that you love him. Please make me know what to do to make this right. Please make me know what I did wrong. Please help me. Please help. Please. Please. And after many days, many days, I was exhausted. For months I had been pleading for God to give me answers, and I had nothing. And I was finally just asking, please. And in the desperate quiet, the words came, ask a different question. The question came, and I asked, is he yours? Love poured into me, through me, over me. I opened my eyes. I thought I would see it pouring out and around me. It was overwhelming, incomprehensible. However much I love my son, heavenly parents love him more. He is theirs now and always, as he is, was, and will be. We all are. God would not, cannot answer my fix this or make this happen question. God loves. The answer is love. God, full of grace, blessed me and my child beloved. My name is Jody England Hansen. I love my gay son.
It was an unusual day when my only daughter revealed to me that she was in fact a he. Nothing in my life prepared me for those words. Nothing cushioned those exact moments. In the span of a few choice seconds, I watched my daughter die. And even worse, I saw her cease to exist. I saw every single iconic girl milestone pass before my eyes. I cringed at the thought of shopping for her first bra. I hurt when the idea of her first prom dress, spun in pink, plummeted that day. I saw the visions of dates, boys, dances, and witnessed her future engagement disappear. I stood by and cried when I watched with my mind's eye the dream of her perfect wedding dress fade. I saw the grandchildren she could have had, and then they were no longer there. I saw my little girl, her big blue eyes, her smile, and her braided brown hair. Then in the next moment, she was no longer there. The days and weeks that followed his coming out are a blur, but I remember the feelings that I felt. I remember the soreness around my eyes from wiping away so many tears. I remember the weight pulling down on my neck and my back and my shoulders when I tried to shake it off. I remember my head hurting so bad while all my ideals, my thoughts, my morals twisted this way and that. I remember the fight I fought to not lose the faith I had in my religion. I remember night after sleepless night, trading rest for exhausted prayer. And I remembered muttering, "Whoever you are, I will always love you." I've witnessed the birth of my new son, and through it, I watched myself become a better person. Through the process, I have felt anger and sadness. I have felt regret and forgiveness. I have finally learned what humility means. I have shed more tears than I am willing to admit, and I have felt loss. When I finally allowed myself to awake from the grieving coma I was in, I felt solace like I've never felt before. I felt whole because for the first time since the day my precious child was born, I really saw him. I saw him as the boy he's always been, and through him, I finally saw me. So many unanswered questions, finally answered. I caught my breath and I whispered, "I have a transgender son and he is fabulous." I've never seen his smile as big as it's been since the day he started living his life as his authentic self. And though I've had a lot of criticism for allowing him to transition, those who know him can't deny how contagious his happiness is. When I start to doubt myself, I remember his smile. I think about our bond. I think about his openness that I never had. I am his mama, I always will be, and I will always protect him. My name is Brooke Caldwell, and I love my transgender son.
I had a feeling my son Tyson was gay from an early age. I'm not completely sure why. I don't really think I ever considered before whether being gay was a choice. If I did, I don't remember it. The thought of it being a choice just never made any sense at all. Tyson battled with a deadly drug addiction for several years. While visiting home during a particularly difficult time in his life, he said to me, "You know I'm gay, right?" I did know, and I knew that I knew, and yet hearing those words was like a punch in my stomach. Why did I feel that way? Why did I even care? I said something dumb like, "Are you sure?" He said, "I'm sure, but maybe I'm actually bisexual." I said, "Well, that sounds like you were confused." I realize now that that was a stupid thing to say. In the big scheme of things, I didn't care if he was gay or not. I really didn't. I realize now that I was just so worried about him in every way that it was just one more thing. With his addiction, his sexuality was not the most important issue to us. My son had the acceptance and love of his family. He was lucky, but he did live with the judgment of his surrounding community. I cannot say that Tyson's sexuality was the reason he decided to use drugs, but I do know that he spent a lot of time pretending to be something he wasn't. The choice to use drugs for escape is often, unfortunately, the answer for some. Tyson got himself into rehab, and after he got out, he enrolled himself in school. We talked almost every day, and one day I realized I hadn't heard from him the day before. I called him, and he didn't answer. He had seemed to be doing so well the last time we talked, so I wasn't too worried. That night I got the call from his dad that the police had contacted him and our son was dead. He had hung himself 2 days earlier. This was just hours after he told me how much he loved school. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was numb. I wasn't surprised because I felt I had prepared myself for this possible outcome, but this time I had been so hopeful. I had this flood of emotions that included relief, horror, sadness, and desperation. Mostly, I just felt agony at the thought of him feeling so desperate and alone. I thought I should have been there. I could have stopped him. I knew I could have stopped him this time, but I also knew there would have been a next time. He had finally escaped from his pain. I had to be happy about that, right? I knew that he had finally found relief, and I didn't blame him for giving up. I remembered and found something Tyson posted on my Facebook almost a year before. It said, "I love you, Mom. You are so respectful and loving. I don't know how I got so lucky. You are a beacon of life, a beacon of light in your community. I love you more than you will ever know." I knew I had some work to do if this was how my son saw me, and I am more determined to be the beacon of light that he saw. As I write this, it has been 5 months since I got the news. I am proud of myself for being strong. I worry often that I've been too strong and that I'm just putting off the inevitable. I spend plenty of time on my bathroom floor, crying and wondering what I could have done differently. I spend some time now feeling a little angry at this boy for leaving me and not fighting a little bit harder. My name is Julie Packer, and I loved my gay son.
It's so unfair to follow that. Learning my son was gay set me adrift. It utterly unmoored me. It shook me at my very foundation. It was never a question of, do I still love him? Can I still accept him? Rather, it was, how do I do this as a Mormon? Am I going to have to choose between the God that I love and the child that I love? This is an impossible choice. Then came feelings of overwhelming grief and pain. I mourned as if my son had died, yet he was still this beautiful, vibrant, very much alive child. I sobbed, I raged, I bargained with God, I prayed, I fasted. The intensity of my emotions scared me. I didn't know I was capable of feeling emotional pain so deeply that it became a physical pain. These feelings were confusing, guilt-inducing things. What mother mourns a living child? Looking back, I realized that I was grieving the life I wanted for Jordan. I was grieving the Mormon boy path. I was mourning my path for him, not his path. I didn't recognize that my selfishness was driving my pain. These were some of the darkest days I have ever experienced. I threw myself into learning all I could about homosexuality and how, or even if, that fit into the Mormon world. I read everything I could find by LDS and non-LDS authors. This was 11 months before the church's website, Mormons and Gays, came out. The LDS materials were truly horrific. The message I was receiving by my local leaders, family members, and printed text was that my son was broken in an irreparable way, that he would have to suffer through a truly horrific earthly existence until he died, at which time he would be fixed and be made straight like the rest of us. I believe strongly in the Holy Spirit being a testifier of truth and that it will guide us in our lives. Never have I seen and felt this to be more true than in the past 4 years. The Spirit has witnessed to me time and again that my son is whole and perfect now and doesn't need to be fixed in any way. He was created perfectly by wise and all-knowing heavenly parents. My husband and I are still active in the Mormon Church. I believe in what author Carolyn Pearson once said, where we do not find love, we have the opportunity to create love. I feel like the most Christ-like, unselfish thing that I can do is to stay and look for ways to create love for those who might not otherwise feel it at church, even if that means I am sometimes uncomfortable and discouraged. I am a better person for having a gay son. What some have thought was such a burden has actually become one of my biggest blessings. Blinders that I didn't even know I was wearing have been taken off. I judge people less. I love people more. Ultimately, I have learned that my religion didn't teach me how to love. My son did. My name is Wendy Montgomery, and I love my gay son.
I decided at the age of 19 to become a member of a church. Its faith has taught me to love all, judge not, how to be a better mother, and to serve others. My husband and I have raised our 4 children in this faith. After my move to California in 1983, I realized that the world was so much bigger than me, and that often my feelings about hot issues were a bit more on the liberal side. In October 2013, my son was 29, and we were returning home from a trip visiting my parents. During the car ride to the airport, he says to me, "Mom, I have something to tell you. I'm gay." My immediate response was, "No, you're not." As I looked at him, sitting in the seat next to me, I saw a much younger boy, and I knew that he was telling me the truth. Emotions still resurface as I think about that exchange. I felt in shock. So many thoughts were running through my head. Don't let him see you cry. Be strong. I had deep concern for my son's safety. I felt a profound love for him and his bravery in telling me. I had many questions for God and for Tyler as tears ran down my face. Tyler told me I could ask him anything. My gut reaction was to grab his hand, tell him I loved him, and ask one question: when did you know? His response was since he was very young. I admitted that was something I never knew. It made sense he would know since he was very young. I then knew that he was born this way. God created him this way. I also knew that God chose me to be his mother. My role is to love and protect him the best I could, to listen, to validate, to learn, and to teach others. My questions to God were more of a pleading that this would not change our family, my relationships with friends, and also of pleading with him to help me say the right things and to soften the hearts of others. I was very nervous the following days as I returned home alone. I kept my distance the following weeks from friends. I cried a lot at how Tyler might be treated. I knew this boy, his heart, and loved him more than anyone could ever know. I disconnected from most people during the next 5 months, which was a mistake. I was lonely and needed others more than I knew. But during this time, Tyler, my husband, and I grew very close, which fortified us for the many things to come. I reminded myself that as lonely as I may feel, Tyler had been alone with his thoughts for 29 years. My heart has been sad knowing it took that long for him to tell me. And my heart also sings with joy knowing he is free to be himself. Love and listening are the most important things. I now listen and hear, and I'm ready to support. I haven't always gotten it right, but what I try to give my son is honesty, full support, laughter, understanding, time, and love. Love is always the right answer. My name is Deb Glenn, and I love my gay son.